Ladies and gentlemen, people are out there trumping for Trump. Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Grant Cardone, everybody and your mama who you didn't think was on Trump's side is on Trump's side. At least that's what appears if you're looking at the podcast scene. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We got into a lot of interesting stuff here. This whole fallout, how it affects the show side of things, how it affects the business side of things. Theo, I thought we made some interesting points, brought up some interesting topics, and learned a little bit about the whole scheme of things that's happening right now. What'd you get from it?
Yeah, I agree, man. Look, we don't do politics on this. We say that a lot, but it was just such a cultural tsunami of events that happened this week here in America. So we had to go into the Trumpism of it all. But everyone, look, if you like what you're hearing, look, comment. Want to watch more of us? Go hit that subscribe button and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, I'm super excited about this episode, man. So I'm ready to get into it.
All right, let's do it.
This is Show versus Business, where pop culture meets pop money, with your host, the real Theo Harvey, and Mr. Benja. What's been going on, Mr. Benja?
Oh my God. I got my American flag up. I think it might be backwards depending on how this is recorded. But man, I'm not even going to think about it because you know what? Like you said, man, you brought me to the realization. Ain't no thinking in this new America. It's just time to get in there and do what you do, put up an act, and I don't know, stream about it or something. But things are changing, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's been a crazy week. How was yours?
Man, it was good, man. Yeah, considering all the changes that's happening right now in America, stay away from the news, guys. That's just my advice if you want to stay sane. But business-wise, man, just kind of, in my bag, man, just trying to get this money, dude. I mean, this is a new America, so selling, doing more things with my business, looking at how I can make more money. Yeah, man, I'm trying to be out here in these streets, man. So, well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Benja. How was your week? Did you watch the inauguration at all on Monday?
Man, no, I don't watch that. Inauguration is the last thing I watch, man. That's some tomfoolery to me. I mean, I get it. You're excited. You want to watch, but it brought the whole January 6th thing. And then, hey, it used to be crazy. Now it's, everybody's happy and holding hands and, running down the streets, giving people, lollipop shaped like, bald eagles and chanting Trump's name. It's just, I don't know, that whole inauguration thing. I really don't get into it too much. I saw some in the news and we're going to get into that later with the people who were there, Joe Rogan and others. So yeah, I didn't.
Your boy.
All right. For the viewers, I need to find a new word for this because listen isn't the right word. I don't listen to Joe Rogan, but I tune in. I check in. I know check-in is not good either because, yeah, man, you can start throw question marks in the comments, flame me. Let's get into it, but yeah, my boy was there.
Nah, man. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, man, I think there's so much going on this week. I mean, we can kind of get into it, but was there anything else you wanted to kind of catch up on real quick?
Oh yeah, aside from the major topics, man, just on a real level, man, I love YouTube, and I don't mean to be all up in Google's and Alphabet's business, but I was looking at like all the streaming services. And, I was back on Netflix and watching through some Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, his little series. And I was just like, I could be on YouTube, but I'm here on Netflix instead, wasting time. It's just a realization that came to me. And I'm putting good time on YouTube, following people, finding out what they're up to. And
I love it.
Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
Well, do you want to talk about this secret YouTube watches? We had and guys, look, you can put in the comments your secret YouTube watches if you want to as well. But me and Mr. Benja, I think everyone has this thing, or if you're on YouTube, there's certain things that you watch and you probably don't want people to know that you watch more than you should probably. So I don't know, Mr. Benja. I mean, well, it's not totally embarrassing, but it's. You watch an obscene amount of this one, type of YouTube content.
Okay. Have you ever heard people say, how did I end up on this weird part of YouTube? Or they start talking about, how did I find this link, or how was this even shown to me? So for context, there are what's it up to now? How many billions of minutes of video are posted to YouTube every day, hour, second? It's a huge number, like much larger than you would think, and it passes your comprehension on how much content is out there.
Mm-hmm.
So now with all these people putting out all this content and posting up stuff, they're not just posting what you think they're posting. There are people like, lawnmower enthusiasts, who are always talking about how they cut their lawn, and they go deep with it. A friend of mine, she has a camper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole camper YouTube where people are talking about camper adventures and where they went. And I mean, it seems like something you talk about for 5 minutes, but these people go on for hours and hours, and they continue posting all these videos. You're like, who is watching this? And there are all these people into it. So I was talking to, yes, Theo, we were talking, and it's like, yes, I watch reaction videos, and you're like, okay, like, no. I watched this guy in a couple hours, and he's like, really? No, I kept watching, and I subscribed, and I watched his friend. Now his wife is doing reaction videos, so now I'm watching her reaction videos. And I didn't realize this. I was talking to you. I might have a problem.
Yes, you do. What is it about the reaction videos that you enjoy watching?
I like watching, and I've actually thought about this, because when I was doing video game development, I would make a level or make a set of characters, or I design something for a game and say, hey, how does this play out? And I really got interested in watching how people responded.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always looking for, where they got excited, where they pulled back, where they got bored, where they thought something should be, but something wasn't, or where something wasn't there and they thought something should be there, etc. So I was really invested in how people were interested in media. And then I ran across some long form reaction videos. Like a guy was like, hey, listen, I watched all of The Sopranos, every episode, and I've sat down and went through all the episodes and just reacted to them. And I was like, I like The Sopranos. I'm going to watch The Sopranos again, not because I want to see The Sopranos again. I want to see what this guy responds to. So there were jokes that they liked that I didn't like. And I was like, that's very interesting. I should write that down. He laughed at that joke and I thought it was dumb. So it's just very bizarre. And then I started jumping over to foreign channels like India. There's some Indian people from like, India and Pakistan and, South Asia watching stuff like Terminator. And I'm like, what do these people think about this, American material? It's just, and it just kept going, dog. And I've been watching this stuff for years, and I didn't realize it. I was watching a lot more than like your average person.
Man, that is hilarious. Man, well, look, we all have our secret vices. So, while you were talking, I was going through my history of YouTube and kind of seeing, is there something that's abnormal here, right? that I've seen before that kind of keeps coming up. You know how you go down binges? Like there was this show, it was called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I don't know if you heard about it, but it was pretty funny back in the day. And I kind of went down a rabbit hole there, but that's just an outlier, right? So
yeah.
You haven't checked it out. Hilarious. It's comedy, kind of music comedy, right? They did original song every week on it. Did you ever see that show? Have you heard of that show before?
No.
Nipsey Hussle showed up on the first episode, did a little rap song. So yeah, so go check it out. But anyway, so I was looking through my history channels. Okay, what have I watched that's kind of embarrassing that I don't mind sharing? That would be interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't be embarrassed. I don't know how I got on this, but in case my wife is watching, it was all these dating in Korea as a foreigner or dating in Japan as a foreigner. All these little YouTube shorts that come up on my feed all of a sudden. Yeah. I start going down a rabbit hole of these videos of like, what it's like if you're American or if you're mixed or in these different foreign countries. And those just kind of pop up my feed every so often. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Am I looking to travel somewhere subconsciously? So that's one I don't mind admitting. It's like I said, it's pretty tame compared to some of the other stuffs out there. Some of those are pretty much gateways into OnlyFans, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that later. And the other thing I thought was kind of interesting when I was looking through my feed was a lot of stuff around what was the thing I was going to say? Oh, Christian content. So yeah, this is totally opposites, right? A lot of Christian content. There's a lot of these Christian commentators, podcasts. I don't know if you heard of Ruslan or what's the other guy? I mean, they go hard, man. They out here cussing. They are, talking about folks, bringing up dirty laundry of people and gossiping on folks. I'm like, and then going deep into the gospel while they say it's just like it's like blowing my mind. It's like a gospel. It's like a gospel gossip. If Wendy Williams did gospel, right? It's like, this is crazy. And basically every time there was something in the media or something that happens, this one guy, his Ruslan, he's trying to like show how Joe Rogan's going to turn Christian. And he's just like, every time Joe Rogan says something positive in a Christianity way, he's just like, oh, Joe Rogan's going to be Christian tomorrow. And so those are my two kind of interesting, deep dives for whatever reason.
Yeah, man, it's strange. There's so much out there. It's amazing that this can be out there and everybody's walking around and they don't assume that everybody else is like what anybody else would think it's weird or different or bizarre. Like one thing I used to do, and thankfully it's not a thing anymore. There are the people on YouTube that specialize in doing 7-hour, 8-hour, and 10-hour analyses of things. So it's like 10-hour analysis of the Phantom Menace. And the person will just start talking about the Phantom Menace for 10 hours.
Oh, God.
And the point is, YouTube has a 10-hour limit on their videos. So if I just had like nothing going on, like sometimes I watch some anime or something in another language I can't understand. I'm not totally paying attention to it. It's just like, let me just turn this on in the background. Yeah, man, the 10-hour analysis of the Phantom Menace, that puts me into a Zen mode every time.
Yeah, it's the spot, don't it? Oh man, nah, I love it, man. Secret YouTube watches. Maybe we'll do another follow up on this in another 6 months and see where we are.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, it's a great feeling when you fall asleep and then you wake up and you hear a voice that's like, furthermore, Mace Windu had decided that in the outer rim of the territory of Bakavan, and you're like, oh yeah, Mace Windu, I wonder what happened to him. But interesting times.
I love it.
It can only be something that only comes around in this era, right? Where you can just put stuff out and tell people about your crazy stories and record them. And it's very weird, but kind of exciting, actually.
It's so funny. It's like Gary Vee predicted all this, right? He was one of the first ones that he had talked about that. You go down your weird rabbit holes and you can create an audience from that. And so, and I think, in this AI world that we're about to enter, right? The more genuine you are as a person and what you like and what drives you, the more you can embrace that. It seems like the better you will be because there's only going to be one you, right? If you like weird reaction videos while you watch your Christian gossip channels, heck, that's you. So just embrace it and stand out from the crowd because there's nobody's going to like that particular combination of things, right?
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised that probably more people, there's 7 billion people in this world. So there's probably more people like a lot of things, that Venn diagram, all these 7 different circles. Yeah. There's probably going to be people that look at Joe Rogan, we talked about that. Alex Hormozy had brought that up to our attention, how Joe Rogan is talking about conspiracies, aliens, comedy, UFC, fighting, it's just like all this confluence that makes him. And he gets millions of downloads every time he posts something. So,
you know what? Now, you brought up a good point. And now I want to ask you, if you had to do a 10-hour analysis or a 10-hour breakdown or a 10-hour review on any topic that you could think of, on just any random situation, event, piece of history, genre, whatever, what would you do your 10-hour breakdowns on?
Well, I kind of did something like that with my team. They sat down with me about 2 hours. I mean, and we did a whole like stream of consciousness of me just talking about comic books. And I was talking about Spider-Man, X-Men. And so basically from that 2-hour conversation, they cut all these different shorts for my YouTube channel. Shout out the real Theo Harvey. Go check it out. Yeah, so and that content's been running, you know, I think we only posted like on the weekends as fun. And like some of that content, like one time I did a content on the X-Men that got like 10,000 views. It was one of my highest performing content. And that was something I did a year ago. And so I think I could absolutely probably get around 10 hours just going through my knowledge of, you know, comic books over the last, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
We have 40 years probably of comic, history and knowledge and, going through the different eras and the comic books I remember reading and what make those stories interesting. So I think that would definitely be one. Probably close second would probably be basketball, just being around it so much and knowing about it a lot. I could probably go into, go into each era, talk about, Kobe's history.
That's what I'm saying. Go into each era. What I would look for is something so specific. Something would be like, somebody would say the audacity of him to do like 10-hour analysis of like one game or.
Good point. Well, I push it to you. What would you do? One specific.
No, I would do a comparison between Mario Kart SNES and Mario Kart N64. 10-hour analysis.
10 hours? You did 10 hours?
Yes. See, exactly. Your reaction right there is why I would do it.
The audacity.
Mr. Benja's 10-hour breakdown of
Have you at the whiteboard with a little pointer with glasses on? Yes. Okay. I love it, man. That's a good shout out. Look, in the comments, again, if you think of there's something so small, specific that you could do 10 hours on, give us a shout out.
Yeah,
you might get a chance with us.
There's a playlist I found while we were talking, a playlist I found of long form analysis, and it's got over 1,000 videos in this playlist. This is comedy. All right, we can go from here, but it's like the best. Man. Oh, these aren't all 10 hour. These are just long, but they aren't 10 hours. So okay, I need like a 10-hour analysis.
Just stretch out.
Playlist. Killzone, a complete series retrospective. 7 hours. Yeah.
There you go. Well, Mr. Benja, it was not funny. We're talking about long analysis and funniness. I don't know, Mr. Benja. Are we in an interesting world now that Trump is president of the United States right now? I know we both didn't watch the inauguration. And we're both this is not a political podcast, but it's kind of like he's been so dominating the news and commentary the last week. It's like we kind of have to comment on, especially in our areas of technology and some culture stuff. But Mr. Benja, did you see all the executive orders that Trump put out there in the last week alone?
Before we get into this, as I said, I have a different type of view on politics. So I don't know if anybody's assuming we're left wing or right wing or, whatever. I don't know what people are assuming when they listen to this, but, jump in the comments, educate where necessary, flame if you want to. I know how these political discussions can get, but I'm not about to go super political with this discussion. I just want to talk about what's happening, if that makes any sense. So as far as executive orders, I heard about some of them, and that he was making quite a few. Let me just pull this up right now. And there's you got some. Go ahead.
Yeah. The one we put a link to some of these here on New York Times might be behind a paywall. But I mean, look, we're not gonna go through all of these. I mean, that was his shock and awe kind of campaign, just to put so much out there to kind of get everybody riled up. Now, some of these are probably pending some legal course of action.
Yeah.
But it's just so many out there. I mean, big themes are around like terminating DEI programs across the federal government, recognizing two sexes. There's been this whole transgender kind of fight in the culture wars. One thing around immigration, moved to end birthright citizenship, which is against the 14th Amendment. So it may not be legal for him to even say that. So basically, if you were born in the United States, you don't just automatically get citizenship according to his executive action. What else did he put here? Just taking us out of all these, the WHO, which is a health organization. So basically, that's the kind of warning agency for things like the pandemic that we just witnessed. So taking us out of that kind of organization. We had talked about the TikTok ban last time we were on this pod, and prior to that, TikTok was gone. They came back because on the strength that Trump would delay TikTok being totally kicked off servers in U.S. So he did a stay of execution. So I think it's like a 75-day window that TikTok has to, the Chinese government has to divest itself from TikTok. So we'll see what happens there. So yeah, it was just a whole slew of different things. I mean, little stupid things like rename Mount Denali in the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is supposed to be now called the Gulf of America. Go figure.
Yeah.
Mount Denali is supposed to be named, what's it called? Mount McKinney. Just a bunch of stuff out here, Mr. Bridges. So, I mean, yeah, it just got all this news and all, and I just had to turn my phone off, man. It was just like, bing, 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 bing. It was like, bing, 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 bing. No, I'm not doing this year. I'm not doing this again. So, yeah.
I don't like Trump, but it's like, I get how he came to be. And that's what's frustrating about this era. It's like, I remember last time I was in a corporate job, we were talking, you mentioned DEI and those initiatives. Last time I had a corporate job, which was several years ago, I was in a situation and I went to HR and I was like, hey, HR, let me ask you a question. So X, Y, and Z happens and it's within a certain group of people. I join that group of people. That same X, Y, and Z happens. And now they're mad at me because I'm with that group of people. You know what I mean? So I don't want to get into details, obviously, but basically the only thing that changed was I had joined the situation and they got upset about it. So it's like, well, and HR came back at me and said, listen, we hope this doesn't turn into anything. We understand your concern, but if somebody's upset, that's what matters. And I was like, wait, what? It's like, well, nobody was hurt. And it's not about anybody being hurt, not about making somebody feel a certain way at work, in terms of being able to do their job. It's just like, they didn't like it. So that's a concern. And I'm like, so yeah, it was just very interesting the way it broke down. And the way I'm phrasing it like this is because the idea was that there was no standard of actual action to reaction, where it's like, if I slam the door very hard, hey, that could be considered violent behavior or whatever. Okay, sure. Nobody slams doors in the company because it could be considered violent behavior. There was none of that. It didn't start from action, response, and this whole series of things that we used to look at. It started upside down, which was, how did they feel? And I was like, hey man, they could have watched a horror movie last night and I wore the same shirt as the slasher in the horror movie, and all of a sudden I make them feel bad. And it was just totally upside down. And I remember going in the discussion, they just kept saying, no, I'm sorry. If they feel bad, it's your fault. And that was basically the company line. No matter what the situation was, it's just like, we can't have anybody feeling bad. And I actually asked that question. I was like, so can you make someone feel bad? And it's like, we don't want anybody feeling bad. Everybody we do our best to make everybody feel good at this company. And if something's not right, then we have to make changes. And I was like, oh, and that was like the beginning of some of the stuff that I'm seeing now, where you've got this different way of looking at how things happen. So I don't know. You've seen some of the Karen videos, right? Where
yeah. And I think what you're trying to, say is like basically high level. It's just foolishness of what is really important, what's not, right? It's like who cares about people's, how people feel, so we're gonna stop this. Just like this whole, transgender thing, when you're having women who and like I said, men who recent trans
you're about to get in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to look at my words here. See? I'm trying not to get canceled myself, but who became women, right? And they compete in women's sports. It just got kind of silly, right? The whole boxing, the Olympic boxer. Remember that whole incident? And people are like, what is this about? And so it just became a bigger thing. And so I think there's some foolishness when we kind of look at like, wait a minute, let's just be logical. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
But then, the society and culture is making us feel like, oh, you're a bad person because you're trying to exclude this person from being free who they want to be. No, I'm trying to protect my my daughter who in that sport from getting beat up by a guy, just who used to be a guy, because he still has the same muscular strength, even though the cosmetic, genetics don't lie. Right. And so I say all to say is like, I agree. I think, Trump, I don't like him either. And I think he's can be a person that's very abrasive and doesn't teach good morals. But I get the sentiment of people feeling like it's got out of whack. We need to get another out of whack person in there to change everything up. And so I get that sentiment.
It's such a strong knee-jerk reaction that we've swung wild. There is no good middle ground anymore. We're just swinging wildly at this point. And
it's overreaction to the initial reaction, and I mean, the stuff he's doing, like with the whole pardon of the insurrectionists, right? Going out of jail, especially the ones that attack cops. This is a terrible precedent, But it's not like, I don't know, I can't get shocked by anything he does anymore, right? And then obviously I don't know if you saw, he was literally in your state not too long ago, basically going off on how California wasn't going to get any federal funds, right, for disaster relief there. So it's stuff like that, which is illegal because those funds are available for taxpayers. The president of the United States can't unilaterally decide you get the funds, you don't get the funds, right? Yeah. But anyway, so I'm agreeing with you. I think it's just of an overreaction of initial issues that people had overall in culture and the government.
Right. Oh, I have another example actually, really quickly, to help this make a little more sense. And we'll get into all our different players in a second. I was friends with the person, right? Mm-hmm. And this person was a cross-dresser. A man dressed in women's clothes. That's mm-hmm. what he was. People started calling him transgender. I said, no, he's not. And he wasn't. He was just dressing in women's clothes. They got mad at me for denying him. So that would be an example where someone's feelings, they are mad at me. All their feelings are in a bunch. And now I'm in trouble because I'm actually saying the correct thing from his point of view. I'm like, no, I know this guy. You don't know this guy. I'm telling you, he's not transgender. He's just using that term because he doesn't understand the term. I promise you. I know the guy. We hang out. We went to, drink beer together and stuff. But, he's still a good friend of mine. Did I just do the friend thing? One of my best friends. But no, it's we're going into areas we don't understand. And Trump is saying, hey, I don't understand any of that either. Anybody who doesn't understand any of that stuff, get with me. And apparently, and we've got a lot of stuff here that people who jumped on that same bandwagon. And some people were doing it for power. Some people were doing it because their actual vibe was was aligning with Trump and their true colors started to show. Yeah, it's how do you want to play this for the rest of it?
Well, the whole Bloomberg did a big deep dive on podcasters for Trump, right? The second Trump presidency, brought to you by YouTubers, and we talked about this, right? We saw the up and coming folks who were on YouTube, starting to shift over to more Trump. This list Bloomberg went into people like Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz, Patrick Bet David, Lex Friedman, Theo Vaughn. They did a big deep analysis, right? And they saw like what kind of content they went on, what kind of content they had over the last, several months. And it really broke down like, how that content became more and more right wing or leading toward the right over, several, especially during election season, and how they had freaking guests on over and over again that were, toward, the white side of when I say the white right toward the political spectrum, right? So that's like
twice.
Yeah, I know. So you had obviously Trump showing up on a lot of those guys' podcasts. We had Dana White, who kind of Elon Musk started talking about stuff. Joe Rogan, I mean, when he kind of started moving in that direction, it really kind of, you start seeing more and more of those guys doing the same thing. Because Joe Rogan, let's be honest, he has been probably the number one podcaster in America for several years, right? So I think it was kind of one of those things that you and I kind of saw, because a lot of these guys we watch, right? I mean, I'm surprised that Patrick Bet David, I remember he was just doing his valuetainment thing on a whiteboard, getting excited about business, and all of a sudden he's talking about all this political stuff, right? And I think it was funny. It was a couple other guys, YouTubers, right? They started to swing right during the COVID. Remember a lot of them kind of blew up. Patrick Bet David was one of them. And they started swinging right when, talking about Biden's policies and all that, going live. I remember that one guy, Ask Kevin, right? He was doing some stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think he got away from it. I think he said, this is not who I want to be. So he stopped all that. But you could absolutely see, I mean, Grant Cardone, our buddy Grant, he's been kind of moving in that direction for years, right? And he showed up on one of the major, the Madison Square Garden event, campaign event that they had. So, yeah, I mean, and be honest with you, a lot of these folks like Les Friedman, I didn't hear about, I'm not a big Joe Rogan podcast listener, but Mr. Benjamin, do I blame you?
Well, it's funny. We talked about this, and it was like we talked about this earlier on when Woke World Disorder, the podcast a few back, and we mentioned how Kamala and camp and much of the left side was pushing, hey, let's get on the news channels. Hey, let's do things in the way we're supposed to do it. You're supposed to have the debate. It's supposed to be an hour long. It's supposed to do this. You're supposed to hit these certain marks. And that just wasn't vibing with so many people. So many people were like, yeah, a debate. How about you just turn on, YouTube and start talking noise? How about you just open up your cell phone camera and spit something, say something to the people? And this is what people like, Grant Cardone were doing. Like, they'd jump on and be, hey, we're doing this, and that. We're going MAGA. And I was like, wait, really? This is what's happening? But yeah, that's what's happening. And like we were talking about, sitting down, watching your 10-hour YouTube analyses, people would go from an Andrew Tate podcast to a Trump social, podcast to a Theo Vaughn podcast and you're talking hours upon hours upon hours of new media content. And then someone's like, hey, if you tune in Sunday at 7 p.m. on MSNBC, Rachel Maddow is going to be talking with, like, what?
Yeah.
How long is she going to be on for? Well, it's an hour show, but it's really going to be 40 minutes with all the commercials and this, that. It's like, no. I got a 10-hour analysis of everything wrong with the Delaware primaries by some YouTube guy, who's putting in subscription links to, whatever right-wing nonsense is out there. And there's left-wing nonsense out there too to subscribe to, but I'm just saying what's happening.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, people form these parasocial relationships with people. They listen to them so much, you almost feel like you know them, right? Because and if you're doing hour-long podcasts and interviews, like you probably know a lot of the same stories. Like I've listened to some folks so many times on YouTube. Like I'll stop listening to them for a while and I'll jump back in, like someone like Alice Hormozy and stuff or whatever. Like, oh yeah, he's about to tell this story. It's like you can almost predict what he's about to say, right? Because
Yeah.
you listen to him so much, you like, oh, okay, I heard that story before, right? I'm
Yeah.
always curious to see, did he come up with some new stories since the last
And
time
they're
I talked to him?
and they're connected. Like
Yeah.
this guy shows up on that person's podcast who has this person on as a guest, and they
Yeah.
reference somebody else. Like Alex Ramosi, he'll say, "Oh, you know what? I like it when, um, uh, Tom Billy, you said this and that and that." And I'm like, Tom Billy, oh, the guy from Impact Theory, right? Let me go check
Yeah.
that out. It's all connected. So there's this whole connected ring that I'm seeing really working effectively on one side, and not so effectively on the other side. And I don't want to understate that, because regardless of the policy, I think that really, really played a huge role in just
Yeah,
everything
it
that we're
was
seeing
all
now.
the all interconnectedness and then the people staying involved in that. So if you look at this from a marketing exercise, I think I took some experts from that Bloomberg article. So the first was the audience, like who were they targeting, right? And it
Okay.
says here, above all, the broadcasters described American men as victims. Let's be honest, American white men mostly, but even younger men of other ethnic backgrounds, they felt they were victims of the Democratic campaign to strip them of their power. A comforting message to a dispirited audience. These days, young men are lonelier than ever, with those aged 18 to 23 the least optimistic about their futures and have the lowest levels of social support. So they went after a group of, up and coming young men who felt like they just don't. I mean, we were both young men at one time. I can remember, man, even in the 90s and the early 2000s when I was growing up, sometimes as a man, you just kind of go off on these lonely roads by yourself, right? You just in the wilderness sometimes trying to figure out yourself, where you want to be, you're in between girlfriends or jobs and you just don't know what you're doing in your life. Now imagine, we had the YouTube, right? And then we were just getting quote unquote red pilled, right, by these influencers in our ear. That's right, I could do that. It's their fault. It's almost like, you remember back in the day, the whole radicalized, right? People were watching the stuff and they got radicalized and wanted to join
Yeah.
Al Qaeda and stuff like that. It's almost like that because they're watching this stuff, feeling like their lives are hopeless. So they found a willing audience. Let's talk about that. Next, they said, okay, well, how do you get attention into this market, right? It says the easiest route these days for viewership on your YouTube is by creating enemies. They said, it's me against the world. I'm the little guy standing up for what's right against the corporations, against the government, greed. If you want to find a white knight, look at me. I'm your effing guy. And so I think attention, we talked about that. That's a new
Yep.
currency. So if you go after bigger targets of the government, or Joe Biden, he's the reason why, everything's wrong. And they say, yeah, you're right. You're right. You create this enemy. So, I mean, what's it? This is, I hate to say it, but it's like, Nazi Germany. It's just like, one-on-one.
Yeah.
How do you get people, into a movement or into a cult? You find people who are disaffected, dissatisfied, give them an enemy, right? Go after this person. And then you create, personalities, right? They said the programs of view, Joe Rogan, Flagrant by Andrew Schultz, Patrick Bet David, follow the most typical host interview talk show discussing news and popular culture. The hosts largely do not push back against their guest ideas. Vaughn, Rogan, and Schultz are also comedians. And so they also, put a nice little edgy take, on their hard or, on their more hard views. They put a little comedic spin on it. Just say, hey, we're just joking.
It's interesting. And I actually really studied stand-up comedy for a while, and just the whole comedic thing. For those who don't know, I did stand-up comedy for pretty much 5 years back in the day. I was in Minneapolis at the Acme Comedy Club. Met some cool people. Shout out to John Mile, who convinced me to actually do stand-up. But what's interesting is stand-up comedy is an artistic pursuit, right? And when people are sitting around talking, they're trying to figure out what not is funny, but what is interesting enough that gets you kind of thinking about things in a slightly different way. You laugh about it and you're like, huh, okay, something that's amusing, right? You want people to be amused at the very least. And so the way stand-up comedy kind of sketches itself out is people sit around these rooms and talk and they practice these topics. And for a long time, these topics didn't come out of these comedian back rooms. And I've been in a few of them where you're sitting around in some smoky cellar, literal cellar. I was in at one time where some comedians were just sitting around drinking, talking with the understanding that, hey, we're not really thinking these things. We're just kind of bringing them up, bouncing them back and forth. I might not necessarily agree with that. I'm just thinking, hey, wouldn't it be funny if, and that guy's got a really big head, and say, dude, he's got a medical issue. And you're trying to think in your head, it's like, yeah, but still he's got a really big head. You're trying to make it funny, right? In a way that's nice, or not necessarily nice, but palatable. So you can get your point across without having to stifle yourself. And Joe Rogan ended up recording this stuff, and it started out very small, and people were like, whoa, these kinds of conversations are happening, without the context that this is a comedian just kind of throwing things around. That's why he can talk about, space, aliens in space, weird conspiracy theories, who built the pyramids, flat earthers. That's why he can have, somebody like, what's his name? Alex Jones and his boneheaded self, have him on there and still talk seriously and laugh at the same time. This is the way comedians kind of talk to get things out. And he put it out on Front Street. And then everybody else who's not into comedy suddenly says, oh, that's how people can have conversations. And it's kind of like, not exactly. This isn't a normal conversation. But suddenly, for a lot of people just listening in or just getting into podcasts, they're like, that's how conversations are supposed to happen. And you're like, not exactly. That's not to be taken completely seriously.
No point. I think most people think that, they've normalized how to have edgy conversations and put a nice little wink with it, right? But still say something that's pretty awful, right? I mean, what's that guy, the comedian that roasts everybody, right? What's his name? Tony, whatever. He did some very controversial stuff and people got mad at him. Yeah. He just says
Kill Tony podcast.
Yeah, he'll say whatever, right? And wink. And so and I guess that was like their way to kind of push back on this whole, woke agenda, and that's what they call it. So, but just like everything, Mr. Benja, we've been on this planet for a while, Mr. Benja. There will be a backlash to this. There'll be a backlash to this, right? So, because it's the same cycle over again, right? So Obama came up because there's a backlash against Trump, right? I mean, against Bush, right? With his overreach and going to the war and Iraq and all that crap. Then there was backlash to Obama, right? When they had to occupy Wall Street and all that kind of stuff popped up, right? Then there's a backlash to then the Trump came into power. There's a backlash to Trump. So it's just, I mean, and I guarantee there will be right now, there's no resistance like it was before, right? People wearing, the pussy hats and all that kind of stuff, but we will see some kind of backlash here. I predict. I mean, I have my watch on. I would say we shall see something coming soon.
Yeah. And we'll wrap this part of it up, but yeah, with all this back and forth, does it start to get out of balance and topple at some point, and I don't know. There's a lot of craziness going on. And by the way, speaking of going back and forth, man, I gotta tell Snoop something, man. Snoop, I don't know what you're doing. That's all. Snoop Dogg is out there in the inauguration, doing the Snoop dance and everything. I don't know, man. I wouldn't mind it so much if you were just doing it for your thing, but it goes against what you said before. I don't know.
Well, I mean, man, I do.
It's Snoop Dogg, so.
But you know what? I was looking at Charlemagne the God. He was on the Daily Show. He does a little Daily Show weekly, one episode a week. I think it's on Thursday or Fridays. He made a good point. He said people have been saying Trump was Hitler for the last, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? And then you got Obama chuckling it up with him at, you saw that video chuckling it up with Trump at the funeral for Jimmy Carter. You saw Biden, smiling and greeting him at the White House. It's like, wait a minute, this guy is truly that bad and evil, then treat him like that. Because Trump, when he was on the outs, he stayed true to himself. He was like, I'm still president, these guys are jokers, and he never wavered. And I think people respond to that strength that, unfortunately, the Democratic Party, the only one who was out there saying some stank out there was AOC. Did you see that? She said, people ask me, Congresswoman, why are you not going to the inauguration? She said, because I don't support rapists. I was like, okay, girl, keep saying your stuff before you get deported back to Guatemala. So do what you gotta do.
Yeah. And you know what? I got to do a deep dive on this, but it's weird. The whole go woke, stay broke thing, go woke or broke. They did a study on how much money the people in government make, and AOC was like very near the bottom, if not the bottom in her class. And I was just like, I get it, but such a
but I respect that. I mean, in a world where, like you said, you talked about Snoop, right? Not adhering to his values and his principles. It's refreshing to finally, find people who do stand up. It's so uncommon now, right? I mean, shoot, even Trump. I mean, that's probably why people respect him. If nothing else, he's going to stay true to who he is and what he says, right? In certain ways. And
hey, if Snoop would have said, "Hey, listen, I'm only here for a check, and I'm doing this and that, y'all need to do X, Y, and Z," play the beat, and did his thing. You'd be like, oh, okay. He'd be like, oh, okay. He's only here for the checks. Trump's not much of a factor, whatever. But he didn't do that. He was like, you can look it up and see what he said.
I love it. Mr. Benjamin, this has been a good show, man. I know we'll probably get into some more like entertainment next time. I know it's more political than we normally went into. Yeah. So guys, look, again, it's not a political show.
Off the cuff, we left out all types of references. As I said, flame in the comments, please.
Yeah, but it was fun. So I love it. We'll get into more. We didn't even get into the crypto meme stock that Trump made billions on.
You ain't getting no
$sign Trump, $sign Melania. We didn't talk about the AI Stargate project that he announced. He removed all the restrictions on AI. So we'll see how that affects us. So like I said, there's a lot of things that are happening now that, we won't know for several years. So I always tell people, just focus on you and your family right now. Don't worry about, I hate to be like that, but it's kind of like, I think Biden said it, his exit. I know you probably don't watch that either. I didn't either, but I heard the little summary of it, and basically said, hey, there's no one protecting you anymore. He said it himself, Biden. So if he said it, he would know. We think.
Yeah.
So anything else going on for you this week, man?
Oh, God bless America. Yeah, man. You know what? I was you know how you learn something and you go back and read something and it gets better for you? You're like, oh, man, so I missed this and that and that. Boom, I had another Benjamin Hardy hit. I'm telling you, man, when I meet that guy, I'm gonna have so much ammo for him. But I've had my whole thing about the sick chain. I want to do this so I can do this. It's kind of backwards and wrong. So I gotta readjust my thinking now. And I'm having one of those readjust my thinking moments, which Benjamin Hardy says is necessary for rapid transformation. So I gotta stop, reflect, be like, that's some nonsense. At least for now, there's the better thing. So this week I'm going to be implementing some new changes in my personal life. And we got a long year to go. So I suggest everyone do the same. That's all I got for that.
I love it. I just bought the book Children of Blood and Bone. Have you heard of that book? Yeah. Basically it's kind of like a fantasy series set in Africa. And Gina Prince Bythewood is going to direct the adaptation of this book. And it's got everybody in it, man, from young up and coming black actors like Amandla Steinberg and others. But they also have like a murder's row of folks like Regina King showing up in it. Who else is in here? Viola Davis, Cynthia Erivo, Idris Elba. So this is like the black Game of Thrones. And so, and you know what got me reading it? She said something that had me cracking up, man. I said, I got to read this book now. The author, and I'm going to say this right. The Tomi Adeyemi. She had mentioned that she wanted to write a book that was so good and make it so black that even racists would have to read it. I was like, yes. I love it. I mean, but
I'm not saying that can't work, but I take a little caution to that. It works for Jordan Peele, so let's go.
But check this out. I'm the kind of person that gets motivated by anger. So I was like, oh man, I'm gonna write a story that's so good and so black that everyone's gonna have to read it, even if you're racist. With a mission statement like that, how can you go wrong? Hey, she's got the bona fide. She went to Harvard. Yeah, she went to Harvard. All that
doesn't
stuff.
matter.
I know, but I hear you, man. That's that woke. I'll be honest with you, man. Don't sleep on that, man. People are like, I don't think it's totally dead. Woke agenda is not dead.
No. It's definitely not. I mean, don't forget, man. The word woke was twisted from back when we used it. Do the right thing. School days. Wake up. You know what I'm saying?
It'll be back, man. It's just right now, this is backlash to the backlash, and it'll be backlash to the backlash again. So, everything that was, who was that? Battlestar Galactica. Remember, everything that was will appear again. We're all living cycles over and over again. So everybody, stay safe, stay sane. If you want to stay woke, up to you. But Mr. Benja, yeah, man, it's been a good week. Anyway, everyone, wow, this has been a good episode as always. Look, I hope you guys like what you heard. Please like, subscribe, and comment at Show vs. Business on X/Twitter, Threads, YouTube, and Instagram. Listen to us at Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to check us out, go check out our website, Show vs. Business. All right, Mr. Benja.
Peace be with you.